Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How's it going? It is another Taco Tuesday. How's it going? Yes, today is not only just one Taco Tuesday, it is actually the 15th Taco Tuesday. So, how you guys doing? I'm here in my new office. This is actually my room. I just set it up so I'll be able to do my work privately. So, I hope you guys have had an awesome weekend. I did. And today we're going to talk about a really, really cool story, the story of Daniel. But before we get into that, what are we going to do? We are going to give a couple of shout outs first. So we had like Arbit in Malaysia, we had Sana in Mongolia, Maria in Australia, Rita and Jet also in Australia. Thank you for coming in early and just like starting up a good chatting room inside YouTube and Facebook. Just a couple different things. Oh, what are you guys drinking? This is what I'm drinking right now. I am drinking an Earl Grey milk tea, half ice, no sugar with grass jelly. What are you guys drinking? What are you guys drinking? Okay. Well, you guys can go ahead and write that in the chat room. Just tell me how you guys are doing. Before we get started today, a couple things. Well, just one thing I want to keep in mind is if you have any questions and you have it in your mind sometime during this talk, just go ahead and type it out. So you'll type out your question, we'll put it in the queue, and then we'll get to your question a lot quicker and sooner if you do it earlier. So anytime during the talk, you can just write down your questions, it'll be fine. All right, cool. So today, what are we going to talk about? Everyone get your bubble teas, your coffees, whatever it is ready. And we're going to begin today's Taco Tuesday with the story of Daniel. So now, when we think about Daniel, what is the first thing you think? And if you look at the picture, like if you look at the title page of today's talk, you see Daniel on one side. On the other side, you see a lion, right? Whenever you think about Daniel, the one thing you think about is, oh yeah, the dude with the lions, right? Who didn't get eaten by lions. Of course, that's one of the things that makes him famous, but not the most, okay? One thing you got to know about Daniel is he is not an ordinary person, right? Of course, he's a prophet, but not ordinary, meaning he is from the royal bloodline of King David, okay? So he is like royalty. Now, let me tell you about a couple stories about a couple things about Daniel's story. Number one is way back when he was a teenager, Babylon came in, took over his country, plundered the city, plundered the temple, okay? And then they grabbed like thousands of people and they held them captive and brought them all back to Babylon, okay? And Daniel was one of them. So can you imagine this? You're a teenager, you are royalty, you have everything that you need, and then someone comes, takes everything away, and then takes you from your home into another place, into the place of the enemy. Now, at that point, the king recruits David. Now, as he's training David and some of his friends and some of these elite people from Israel, they're trying to make David become more like the Babylonians, right? So they're trying to make them eat the same and do the same and do the same things that Babylonians do, even like the religious rituals. But one thing Daniel did was he did not conform to what they did. So even when they're trying to do things that go completely against his beliefs, against his religion, he still wouldn't do it. And at one point, he didn't eat any meat. He refused to violate his beliefs, even though he's not even in his own country and they are the ones capturing him, right? So after this, Daniel proves himself really well. And what happens is the king chooses David to be in his court. Now, one day, the king has this crazy dream. And what happens is he goes to all these wise people and all these people that he recruited and he said, can anyone tell me this dream? And what happens is the king says that if one of you cannot tell me this dream, I will kill all of you. Finally, at that point, God gives the answer to Daniel. Daniel goes to the king, and basically the news is, just got to let you know that you will know, there's going to come a time when the Persians are going to take over your empire. Like that was the interpretation of the dream, right? So Daniel interprets the dream. Everyone is thankful to him because he interpreted the dream, no one dies, okay? Then the king sees how great and valuable Daniel is and makes him a governor, right? So all of a sudden he comes to this high position as a governor. Now that king dies, his son takes over. And the son wasn't too much of a good guy. Actually, he was someone who was very, very prideful and arrogant. And this king has a dream too. And basically, it was about his pride. And then he has, not only does he have a dream, he has a vision of someone writing something on the wall. Daniel interprets it and says, guess what? you're going to die. Like the Persians are going to take over. And it was crazy because after interpreting that dream, that night that king died after interpreting that vision. But right before the Persians took over the Babylonians, that king made Daniel the third highest ruler in all of Babylon, right? So here he is coming from like royalty, then he becomes a slave and he gets captive, and then he gets someone who's like picked and chosen by the king, and then he doesn't want to do the things like everyone else, and then all of a sudden he becomes a governor, and then from interpreting a dream, he interprets a vision from another king, and then he becomes the third highest in all of Babylon, right? Now, like I said, he becomes the third highest of Babylon, and that night, the king who puts him there dies. So the Persians come in and they see that, oh, okay, this is what's happening here. But of course, the Persians don't know a lot about that area, so they keep those rulers there, and Daniel ends up working for the new Persian ruler too. Now, what happens is the Persian ruler loves Daniel. He is so good. And the thing that kind of bothers, the people that are bothered by Daniel, who are jealous of Daniel, is not the king. It's the king's trusted advisors. They're looking like, why does this king love this guy so much? So they get super jealous and they concoct a plan to kill Daniel. And this is when the lion thing happens, right? So what happens here is like, they're like going, hey, you must worship the king. Daniel's like, no, I only worship God, right? And then they're like, oh, we're going to throw you in the den. They throw him to the lion's den. And the next morning, they open the cave. They look in and Daniel's still alive, right? And basically what the Bible says is like they were angels holding the lion's mouth shut. So the king was like relieved, like, oh my goodness, Daniel, oh, thank God. And he takes him out and he throws the advisors into the lion's den and they all die. Okay. So what happens here is we see that, the lion's den is kind of one of the ending points, like of major things. The rest of Daniel's life is all him receiving his own visions and dreams. They're prophesying or they're telling the future about Israel. Okay. So Daniel lived a very super eventful life, right? Very, very interesting and eventful life. And when you look at this, like, wow, so his story is a lot bigger than we thought. And he went through a lot of different things that no one really knows about. He wasn't just there in Babylon for like a year or 10 years. He was there for 70 years in a place not his own. And he was the one that received the prophecy like, hey man, that God basically tells him, dude, you're going to be there for 70 years. And Daniel's like, can it be a little shorter? He's like, nope, it's going to be 70 years and you're not going to get past that date. So this is the basic story of the story of Daniel. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to kind of get into the three lessons. Like we always talk about, what are the three lessons we can learn from Daniel, right? Looking at his story and what he's gone through, what he's done, what can we look at that and say, oh, wow, this is a very interesting story. What can I learn from this, right? So we're going to take a look at three key things. The first lesson we want to learn today, when you look at Daniel's story, and this is something that's really important for everyone in their life right now, right? And there's a big key word I want to tell you guys today. The word is integrity, okay? Integrity is such a big thing. When you keep your integrity, it's like, if you have someone who keeps, the way they think, one day they'll support this and the next day they'll support this and then they go back and forth. That's having no integrity. But can you imagine someone who is very, very loyal to someone and even to their death, right? They stay loyal to someone, they're keeping their integrity, their honor, right? Everyone knows them, and it usually has to do with their morals and who they really are. Now, why is this so important? Why do we look at Daniel? Why do we look at it and say, wow, he's got massive integrity? Because if you think about it, what did he go through? He was captured. His place was plundered, his home, right? His entire city, his country was plundered. The temple of God was plundered. He was taken away. And even then, he wouldn't go against his beliefs, even when they're trying to make him eat foods that they're not supposed to eat. Like some things in the Old Testament time, you can't eat pig, right? Pork. But in the same way, too, he's not going to do it. He's keeping his integrity, right? He's not just flipping back and forth. He doesn't lose himself. And this is something that we have to really think about ourselves also, right? So let's take a look at the verse that I like, and I'm pretty inspired by when I was reading about this, was from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. It says, don't be misled. Bad company corrupts good character, right? And here's the thing. You might think to yourself as well, this is about having friends around you. How does that corrupt your character? Actually, you are the one choosing the people around you, right? Because these are the people that you want to be with. These are the people you want to be influenced by, which means you have to be the one that chooses properly, right? Those people, like, here's the thing. A lot of people, what do? They don't want to make any fuss. So what they do is they just follow what everyone else does. They don't want to fight with anyone and say like, oh no, I can't eat this. Or just like, oh, okay, let's just eat it, right? You don't want to disturb anyone, right? And what people start to do is we just kind of follow what everyone else does, right? It's so easy to do that if you think about it, because then you just become like a comedian, like, oh, yeah, these people are murdering, so I'm just going to murder with them. You're going to do this, I'll just do this with them. And that's what happens to people is when you have bad people around you, it corrupts good character. Why? Because these are the people we choose to be around us, right? And it does influence us. And in the same way, too, to keep your integrity, what we have to do, it's hard. We know what to do at times, right? For those of you who have, for instance, like for me, I have faith, right? There are certain things about my faith that I should keep no matter what, right? That someone's not going to tell me, no, man, you should just do something really bad. That's what I feel is something that is completely wrong, what I believe is wrong. But I know it's wrong, but why do I still do it? I shouldn't do that, right? You have to keep your integrity, right? You have to keep your integrity. You know what is right, and you should keep it. Just like Daniel, what happened? You shouldn't eat it, so he doesn't touch it, right? He didn't touch it. What else happened too is, remember when he was thrown to the lion's den? At that time, they were forcing everyone to worship the king. But he's like, I don't worship people. I worship God. And he refused to worship. And he kept his integrity more than anything else. And this is when people really start to respect people, is when they keep their integrity. Daniel was persecuted. People were against him. He was not in his own home. And what happened? Even in those situations, he kept his integrity. And this is why even now people look highly upon Daniel. Okay? So number one is keep your integrity. The second thing that I think is really, really important, especially this week, and I want you to think about this, is seeing both sides. Huh? What do you mean seeing both sides, right? Seeing both sides, what does that mean? So I'm going to tell you this very, very cool Proverbs in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 17, right? It says, in a lawsuit, the first to speak seems right until someone comes forward and cross-examines. You know what that basically means? It's like if you only hear one side of the story, you're like, oh, this is right. This is the thing that oh yeah, this person's so right. Because, your friend told you and you're like, oh, you know what? They did so wrong to you. Oh, yeah, how dare they do that to you? But when you hear the other side, you're like, what? My friend did that to you? And when you hear the second side, you're like, what? And it's totally different from the one that your friend told you, right? And we've all had this experience before. Why is it important to see both sides? Because one side only has the knowledge of one side, what they felt, what they were going through, what their perspective is. You also need to see the other side, what happened to them. What did they do to them? Why did they feel that way too, right? When you only look at one side, you almost feel like you know the entire situation. Oh, of course, that's the situation. Oh, how dare they? And then you start talking bad things about them until you find out that they were wrong too. And you're like, what? You did this to them too? What? You didn't tell me that, right? And the person's going to be like, oh, I didn't know that they felt this way, right? So what we have to really understand is everything has a positive and negative. Everything has a strength and a weakness. You got to think about this. Okay, think about this very carefully. Daniel was in the royal blood. So think about the strength, like the pros of being in the royal priest, like not the priesthood. He's in the royal blood, Daniel's line, right? He's in line to be a king someday, right? But on the flip side is they're in a situation where there's this huge empire called Babylon, which is like 10,000 times stronger than them. If you were a king in Israel at that time, you would have been taken over and you would have been done. That's the bad side to it, right? Guess what? They took you out of your home and took you all the way to Babylon. But what's the good point is that they trained him in things that he could never be trained in Israel. He's learning things that he would have learned, right? There was opportunity on that side too. A lot of times what we do is we kind of look at just one side and say, oh, this is terrible. Oh, this situation is so bad because of this and because of this and this, right? And the thing we have to understand is, yes, there is something bad about it, but you have to really search out and seek for what is the good side about it too, right? In every situation, it's not just all bad. There's never a situation where everything is just completely terrible. There is always two sides to every situation. There is always two sides to every story. And the thing about Daniel, when you see him, is he took every opportunity, seeing that there was something great in each side. Because a lot of people, if they were held captive, what would they do? No, I'm not going to do anything you say. No, no, how dare you take me from my place? These people could have died. But instead, he worked just as hard. He put so much effort in that even the king chose him to be in his court. That was seeing the bright side, seeing the good side, the other side of the story. And he took the opportunity, the chance. Every time there was a dream, every time there was a vision, he took the opportunity. And every time what happened? He became governor. Then he became third highest ruler of all the empire, which is greater and bigger than what he would have been in Israel. Yeah, he's not whole, but he had an opportunity that was even bigger. And later, you guys go, if you guys read the full story, he is one of the reasons why the Israelites were treated so well. It was because of it. There's such a great side to this, that there was someone at a high level in Babylon, because he was looked upon so highly. All the people that were down here were, they're like, oh, okay, well, Daniel's here. So it gave them an opportunity to show that they were good people, right? Everything has strengths and weaknesses. You have to see both sides. And Daniel, too, he was able to see both sides, and he took advantage of it like to the utmost. And this is why he became third highest ruler in all of the Babylonian Empire. Now, this is the last one today, right? This is the third one. It's the last one. But this one I also believe is a very, very important one. And I call this master of one. Okay? Now, what does that mean, master of one? Let's talk about mastery, or becoming an expert, or becoming really, really good at one thing. See, one of the traps that we get into is we kind of like think that we have to do a lot of things well. But reality, guys, I'm telling you this is something that is so important, right? This is one verse I really like in the Bible, because it really shows you to what length and how far do we have to go. It's in Matthew chapter 5, verse 48. It says, be perfect. It says, be perfect, right? Like you're trying to master something, right? You have to master something in life. You can't just do a bunch of normal things in a normal way. I'm telling you this, guys, right now. If you master one thing, you will always be needed, right? Because you're the best at that thing. If you master something, you will always be used in that one thing, right? So if you look at Daniel's story right now, he was always used. He was so good at what he did, right? He was such a good ruler. What happened? He wasn't just a good ruler with the first king, but the king's son, right? The king's son, like the first king made him a governor. The second king made him the third highest in all of Babylon. Then the new regime comes in, and the Persians come in, and they still see how great and amazing and how expert or mastery he had. And they used Daniel again. Even when a new regime came in, a new country took over, and they still use Daniel. This is what happens when you have mastery, right? When you're really, really good at one thing, right? When you have that expertise, then everyone's going to call you about your expertise. But if you're only good at a couple things, and you're good at a lot of things, but you're not an expert or master at anything, what happens is, well, then whenever there's someone needed, they're going to look for the best person. They're not going to look for an okay person, right? Got to think about it. You start a new law firm. You're not looking for like, oh, I just started my new company. What kind of lawyers you want? I just want okay lawyers, right? Because I want my firm to be really good. So I just want to have like okay lawyers in my law firm. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, right? What are you going to look for? You're looking for the best. Why are there job interviews? Looking for the best. Why do you look for experience? Looking for the best. People are always looking for the best. Do you search for a mechanic and ask for, can you just give me an okay mechanic? Because I got to fix my car. I just want someone who's okay. No, you're looking for the best one. We're always looking for the best, right? Like, in the United States, they're having elections. You're trying to choose the best one, right? That's what you're trying to do. Who's the best one? You're looking for a new cell phone. Which one's the best phone? which was the best camera, which was the best process. We're always searching for the best. We're not looking for mediocre. It's true, right? We have to be those that are mastering one thing. You can master at least one thing, and that thing you can use for the rest of your life. Don't become a master of none, right? That's what I call it, a master of none. Be the master of one, not the master of none, right? You want to be good at one really, really good thing. And I'm going to tell you this one last thing about being the master of one. The reason about being master of one is such an important thing is because of the tools you realize and you pick up in the process, right? When you're the master of one, what do you mean the tools you pick up? The one thing that is so big that you need in every single thing you do in life is having a strong mentality. And I'm telling you this, if those of you out there who've mastered something, you know it's not easy. What it takes in your mind to keep failing and failing and failing and overcoming and failing and overcoming. It's a hard process to master something, but if you have that mental fortitude, that mentality to just run through it no matter what, once you learn this, you can apply that mentality to everything. That's the thing we're learning more than anything else, is that mentality. When you master something, once you grab this, it works for everything. And this is why you're going to see these crazy, amazing people who are masters of sports, right? Then they go into modeling, they go into business, they go into investing, they go into ownership. Why? Because they've learned the mentality. They've learned it through mastery of what they were doing. You're like, what the heck does soccer have to do with business? And the answer is zero. But it's not about the soccer. It's about the process of mastering something. Your mind and mentality begins to strengthen and becomes amazing. And you can take that and put it onto other things in life. When you're just mediocre at stuff, it means that you couldn't overcome these really strong things. And you're like, okay, it's too much for me. I'll just settle here. It's far better to become a master of one thing, and that will spread to all the other different things than just kind of being mediocre at one. All right. So I really hope that this helps you out when you learn through the story of Daniel today. What do we learn about? Number one is keep your integrity. Right? Integrity is who you are. It is your morals. It's what you live by. You have to keep that integrity just like Daniel did, even when the odds were against him. Number two is, what do you have to do? You have to see both sides. What does that mean? We always make the wrong judgment when you only look from your perspective, your best friend's perspective, one side's perspective, and you'll never see the opportunity and you'll never see what is amazing about what just happened right now, even though something bad happened. And last but not least, it is become the master of at least one thing. Just master it. Become an expert in something. And this will help you not only in that field that everyone wants to use you for that one thing you're mastered at, but that mentality you learned in the process will help you with other things in your life also. Cool. All right. So that is the story of Daniel today. I hope you guys really understood it. And it's something that was able to help you think a little bit more deeper about your life right now too. What we're going to do is we're going to take a sip of our bubble tea and we're going to go into the question and answers today. Okay. All right. So we got a couple questions today. Sorry guys. Couple things for you guys out there. Remember, if you are here for the first time, just go ahead to our YouTube channel, Espresso with Sky. Go ahead and just smash that subscribe button and just obliterate that notification bell, and you'll know every time we're live and every time we have a new uploaded video. Also, for those of you who want to support this ministry, go ahead and click that link for our Patreon site. And also every Saturday at 1 p.m. we do have group Bible studies. If you want to join us for that, go ahead and sign up, and there's a link for that too. Okay, so let's get into today's questions of the day. All right, questions of the day. Let's start with the first question of the day. First question of the day is from John in Singapore. It says, how is it possible to see both sides of the story until someone tells you? That's a good question, okay? So here's the thing. You're like, how do I even know there's another side? Like, how do I even know it if no one tells me the other side? So there's two things you can do, two things, okay? So this is really, really healthy for people too. two things you can do to really start to understand that there's another point of view. Number one is seek out the other side. If there's an argument between two people, don't wait for both sides to tell you. Talk to one side and then go seek out and talk to the other side. Like, actually seek the information, research it. Second thing that's really good, and I think this is also good as a mental exercise. There's something in America, I'm not sure if they use this in Asia, but they call it playing the devil's advocate. Now, playing the devil's advocate just means pretend you're on the other side and see what it would, like, how would it feel if you were the person on the other side? And that's another way that you can kind of get an idea, like, yeah, that makes one, okay, I understand why this person was upset, right? And actually, I'll add in a third one too. The third one I'll probably add in here is, even if you haven't heard the other side, don't jump to conclusions right away. Because that's where you make the biggest mistakes. You heard only one side, you're waiting for the other side, no one said anything, but doesn't mean you should jump to conclusions, right? Listen first. Listen to all the information, research it first before you jump to any conclusion, okay? So that's a great question, John. Let's go to the second question today. Second question today is from Sarah in PJ, that's in Malaysia. If I master one thing, I'm only good at one thing, but if I'm just good at a lot of things, I can do more. Isn't that better? And the answer is, well, it really depends on what you want too, right? But like I said, why are we, you have to think about this, is why are we only like kind of good in a couple of things, right? And one of the reasons why we don't excel to like mastery, what I talked about, is learning the mentality of mastering something. When you learn the mentality of mastering something, your mind begins to shape, and you're exercising your mind to overcome the most difficult things, right? And one of the reasons why we don't master stuff is because when it gets too hard, you're like, okay, this is too hard. You know what? Forget it. Let's go try something else. And that's what usually happens, right? We should have something to gain so that we can gain that mentality. Is it, being good at one thing, but being an expert in one thing is completely different. Why? You know how many doors it opens? It does. Because if you master something, what happens is you can start a school, you can teach other people are going to hire you, right? There's so many opportunities that happen from this one thing that you master. But if you're just kind of okay in a bunch of things, then what happens? Well, you're just kind of okay in a bunch of things. And what do you get from it? Well, whenever you just need to do things, like, yeah, you'll do it, right? But you're not going to gain big things. Like if I talk about sports, because I'm an athlete, right? There's a huge difference between an amateur athlete and a pro athlete. Because a pro athlete, doors open for a pro athlete, right? Sponsorships, tons of money, fame and fortune. You get to meet other people. You get to travel around the world. You get to start your own schools. There's so many opportunities that can happen from being a pro rather than just kind of being okay at other things, right? So for me, like the benefit that comes from mastering one thing is so huge, much bigger than we actually think. Cool, thanks. Great question, Sarah. Let's go next question. Next question is from, this is from Yiting, right? No, Yiling. Oh, here it goes. Yiling in Malaysia, right? It says, what shall we consider or look into when we want to choose one thing to master? Okay, so as nowadays people like to try almost everything before making a choice, right? And that's a good question is, you don't it doesn't mean that go out there and just find something, because you need to find something you want to master, right? You do. And you want to think to yourself like, oh, what can I master? Oh, this kind of, I don't know what to master. But it's just like what your parents do. Your parents do an amazing job and you don't even know it. Like say when they force you to play piano. My parents did that to me. They force you to play piano and you're like practicing every day, like, you're crying and stuff, like trying it. And from a young age, you're learning to master certain types of things. And it really builds resilience and it builds a great character and a mindset. Right now, I'm not sure how old you are, but you are never too old to try out different things to find out, you know what? That is something that I want to do. But I guarantee you one thing, all right, Yiling? This is one thing you need to understand is, no matter what you choose, there will be a point where you want to quit. No matter what. You might think to yourself at that moment, oh, maybe I don't want to do this. No, that's not it. No matter what, it's going to be difficult. No matter what, you're going to hit this wall where you're going to say, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore because no, that's not it. Once you choose something, go and master it, right? Just go and master it, right? And if it's just to learn about the mentality, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Pick up even amazing hobbies that you can start to master, like musical instruments or like sports or some hobby too. Those things will help you out also, right? But what should we look into when you want to choose one thing? Well, this is another topic, but Iling, I think one thing that you should really, really think about is master something that actually helps other people, not just yourself. That's one of the things that they say what is the most, research shows that people who, if you want a really, really fulfilling job, a fulfilling job has nothing to do with finding something that I like, my interest. Fulfilling job has nothing to do with that. It doesn't even have anything to do with money. And the interesting thing is, they say that the two things that give you something fulfilling, number one is mastery. Like you actually master something. That's part of the reason why it gives you fulfillment, mastery. And the second one is it impacts other people's lives. Those are the two things that you go to yourself like, yeah, okay, this is fulfilling. This is meaningful, right? Because when it's just money, you might think to yourself, man, what did I do? All I did was make money. Some people can sit there and regret like, that's it, all I got was money. But if it's something meaningful, people don't regret. Oh man, I spent all this time volunteering and I saved 100 people from dying in Africa from malaria. You wouldn't regret that. You wouldn't regret it, right? Because it's something meaningful, right? So if I were to choose something, it's number one is mastery. So that's what I'm telling you right now is to master something. But the second thing is find something that is going to benefit other people, right? That is helping others. And it doesn't mean like feeding the poor and stuff like that. It could be anything that even if it's computer programming, that finds some type of program that helps other people become happier, or it helps other people to find new love, or whatever it is, right? It's got to be something that's helping other people. Okay? Thank you, Eling. Wonderful question. So that moves us into the last question for today, right? Last question is from Chong Jin. Where's Chong Jin from? Okay, I don't know where Chong Jin is from, but I think he's going to write in the YouTube room anyways. So Chong Jin asks, do you think it is necessary to have college education? I'm going to say that it is not absolutely necessary. Oh, he's from Malaysia. Having a college education is not necessary, but it's beneficial, right? So if you look at the average statistic is those with a college education make more money in their lifetime, on average, right? However, if you look at these successful people in the world, not all of them have a college degree, right? So it's not something that is absolutely necessary. It is beneficial, but is not absolutely necessary. Like I'll give you one crazy statistic. Plumbers in America, a plumber who starts to work right after he graduates high school makes more money than a doctor does. Why? Because a doctor is going to go through 4 years in university plus another 3 to 4 years of medical school. Then they're going to incur so much debt, and then they're going to make a lot of money, but they're paying off their debt first, right? And then by the end of it, they're going to start making money after they pay off their debt, right? Of their schooling and such. But a plumber, you're not going to have debt. You're just going straight right after graduating high school. You go straight into plumbing. You're going to make more money in your lifetime than a doctor does. And that's pretty crazy, right? So yeah, it really depends on what, is it necessary? Meaning, do you have to go? And the answer is no. Will it determine your success? No, it can help, but it's not going to determine, right? So it really depends on what you want to do, because some jobs require you to have a college education and some don't, right? Some jobs just require you to have like a trade school, right? Like a 1 or 2 year school, just learning the trade, right? But no, it is not necessary to have a college education. It's not absolute. Yeah, it's not going to determine if you don't have a college education, oh, you're doomed. That's not it either, right? It's not necessary. It is beneficial and helpful, right? In the average, on a statistical average. But you got to look at this, like, put it this way. People are like, oh, you went to Harvard? Oh, you must be so lucky. But guess what? Do you think all the richest people, the most successful people in the world are all from Harvard? No, they're not. They're not from Harvard. right? You're going to have some people from smaller schools who are more successful than people in Harvard. You're going to have people from community schools that are more successful than people in Ivy League schools. So it doesn't mean it's 100%. It gives you a higher chance statistically, but it is not necessary. Yeah. So yeah, do you need yeah, I wouldn't say absolutely no. And it really depends on what you're going to do. Some things require it, some things don't. So I hope that helps you out, Chungjin, all the way over there in JB. That was the last question for today. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here for the Taco Tuesday. I hope you guys had a wonderful time learning about the story of Daniel. And that means that we have come to an end, and we will be seeing you on Thursday. All right, everyone, have a wonderful and awesome week. And we'll see you guys probably at the Bubble Talk Saturday or maybe next Tuesday, right? Everyone, see you guys later. Oh, wait, another question? Oh, no, it's not another question. All right, that's it's the wrong thing on the bottom. Yeah, there you go. Everyone, have a wonderful day. See you later.
But sometimes I feel we're just falling apart. I'll never forget you from the bottom of my heart. I expected the same for you, but you ripped it apart.